Hello, Dr. Karma here. I'm going to take you through how to properly format your paper, and I'm also going to show you some tools that are in Spell Grammar Check that you probably don't know about right now, and you want to be able to use those tools so that your paper is completely awesome. First, let's look at formatting. So I have a very simple thing right here, and I've screwed it up in all kinds of ways so that I could show you how to format it correctly. But notice that this is something you might think about handing in to me without fixing these problems. Now, the first thing that you might notice is, well, the first thing I will notice is that these margins are not 1 inch. They are 1 inch and then some over here. So I'm going to go to Layout because I'm on a Mac, and notice that my margins are at 1.25. That's not 1 inch. However, it is the Office default margin. Normal margins, which MLA and APA and all the other citation formats require, aren't the default, and that's stupid, but there you go. So I'm going to actually go in, I'm going to change it. Now I'm going to be a lot happier. You're going to notice that not everything is double spaced. So here, this is single spaced. We have this stuff single spaced, and we want to actually double space absolutely everything. So I'm going to highlight everything with Command A, or if I'm on a different computer with Control A. I'm going to go up to Format. I'm going to go to Paragraph. And then I'm going to say I want everything please to be double spaced. And notice how there's nothing in this box, and that's because there are extra spaces after some of my paragraphs. And so I want to set that to 0 so that everything is truly double spaced. And I'm going to say okay, and hey, everything is now actually double spaced. One of the other things you might notice is that this is a different color. Sometimes when you cut and paste from the internet, things come in a little gray. Now, I made this much grayer so that we can see it on the screen. Usually you can't see it till you print it out. I have students all the time telling me, oh, that part's gray because the printer just didn't like that line. No, it's because you cut and paste. So it's a different color. So I'm going to make sure everything is actually one color. So once again, I'm going to highlight everything. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say, please make everything this one color, and then boom, everything is. Notice that when I highlighted everything, this went blank, and this went blank because not everything's Times New Roman. Instead, this is a different font. Every single thing in your paper should be the same color, it should be the same font type, and it should be the same font size. So I'm going to say, please make absolutely everything Times New Roman. Make it Times New Roman 12 because that's the right way to do it. And then I'm not going to bold this because we don't bold our titles or do anything fancy like that in MLA. Now, there are some other issues that I do want to take you through. This paragraph is not indented, so I want to say, hey, let's do that. Format, paragraph. And under indentation, I'm going to say, please do first line indentation because that's how we signal a new paragraph. And then I'm also noticing that this paragraph has a jagged, ragged edge, but then this paragraph has a straight edge. Straight edge is how we format books and things, but papers should actually be ragged edge. Studies show that readers like those better. So I'm going to highlight the paragraph that's not that way. And I'm going to go see how that changed. So this is highlighted here, and I just need to say, hey, align the text on the left, but not on the right. And then my works cited entry is wrong. And the reason it's wrong is because it's indented weird. Both lines are indented over here, and that's not what we need to do. Instead, we use reverse indentation for these. And so I'm going to highlight this paragraph. I'm going to go to Format, to Paragraph again. And then I'm going to say that I don't want any weird special indentation, but that I want hanging indentation, which is reverse indentation. And this is automatically going to make my works cited entry look like it's supposed to look. Now, this is actually ready to go. Notice that I have my little header up here too. Let's talk about some of the tools that we can use when we're doing grammar and spell check. I've reset this computer so it's on sort of the default settings. I'm going to go up to spelling and grammar, and this pulls up a box that I'm sure you're very familiar with, but you probably have never gone into options before. So let's go into options together. And then let's see what's on and what's off and fix some stuff. Right now it's checking spelling as I type, it's checking grammar as I type, and I'm going to turn that off because that makes my typing go a lot longer. It slows me down. I'll have a sentence coming out, I'm typing it, I have another sentence in my head, I'm forming it, and then a little squiggle tells me that I'm spelling something wrong, which of course can sometimes just be my own name. Or it tells me that I'm doing something grammatically incorrect, but it doesn't know because I'm not finished yet, and it just slows me down and confuses me, and it gets the ideas out of my head. I'm gonna run Spell Grammar Checker at the end of this anyway, so I don't need this on as I type. If you really want writing to be harder than it is and to take longer than it does, keep these boxes checked, but I always uncheck them. I'm going to check show readability statistics, and that does something cool that I'm going to show you in a second. And then notice that the default setting ignores words in uppercase, so if you try to scream a word at me in your paper, it's not going to check to see that it's spelled right, but let's go ahead and turn that off. And then you'll notice that there's something that you can do with writing style. Right now it's set to standard, but notice that if I were writing a blog, I could set it to casual, but I could also set it to formal if I were doing something very formal. But I always keep it on standard, but then I go into settings, so please go into settings. And then let's look at what's on and what's off. So in standard and in casual and formal, some things are turned on, some things are turned off, but you need to know what it's checking and what it's not. And if you scroll down, you'll actually see, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of stuff it's not checking right now. So it's checking these things, it's not checking numbers. So it's checking passive sentences and stuff, but it's not checking sentence structure. Well, you want it to check sentence structure. You want it to check cliches and colloquialisms. If you know anything about me or basically any other writing teacher, you know we hate cliches and we hate colloquialisms. Cliches are those phrases like, it's raining cats and dogs and all these things. Colloquialisms are regional cliches like hella or y'all, and we're going to take those out. Contractions, I don't have a problem with, but when I write for editors who do, I turn that on. Right now, I want it to check gender-specific words, and that's so that if I say waitress, it says when it's running, Karma, do you mean server? And then I think, oh, yes, I do. Jargon is language that only works with a subgroup of people, and so I want to have that on. Sentence length, more than 60 words. Why wouldn't I want it to tell me that? Please check that box. Sentences that begin with and, but, and hopefully are usually fragments, so I'm going to check that box. I want to know if I have 3 nouns just in a row or 3 prepositional phrases right in a row. I want to know if I'm being unclear. Now, use of first person, that's using I or me. Use first person if you're telling a story about yourself. And you might tell a story about yourself in all kinds of different papers. Don't use first person to say, I think, I feel, I believe, it is my opinion that, or something like that, because that's wordy, and we want to check that box too. But if you have that tendency to say, I think, I feel, I believe, and to overuse I, go ahead and check that use of first person box, and it's not going to change it for you. It won't delete it, but it'll remind you that you're using that. And then I don't care about split infinitives, so I'm not going to worry about that box. Notice that there are 3 things it's telling me that it's not checking at all. Comma required before the last list item. This is called the Oxford comma. This is something that we use in American essay writing, but not in British essay writing, and not in American newspaper or magazine writing for some reason. But as I am an American essay writer, I'm going to say I always want that Oxford comma. If you're writing in another form, check never, but please have it doing one or the other, or else you're going to mix and match, and that's not appropriate. Punctuation with quotes. The American style is inside, except for our weird magazines and newspapers, which sometimes do the British punctuation, but again, please be consistent. And then spaces required between sentences. The answer is 1. Now, you might have had some teachers who said it's 2, and they say that because their teachers said that and they listened, but their teachers were wrong. It hasn't been 2 for a really long time, and that was about a really old typewriter that had problems. We don't have that problem anymore. I am a professional editor, and I will tell you that as a professional editor, the standard is 1, and whenever anybody publishes anything, aside from, their personal publication on a blog, their editor has to go and change everything they do to 1. So I'm going to say that. Yeah. Okay. And okay. This is a fragment, but it's not a sentence, so that's fine. That's fine. That's also fine. Okay, and because I checked the readability statistics box, it's giving me a beautiful snapshot of my paper. It's telling me how many words I have, how many characters I have, paragraph sentences. It's giving me my averages, right? So I'm averaging almost 7 sentences per paragraph. I have about 10 words per sentence, but they're not really long words, and that's fine. My passive sentences are 5%, and that's great. You should never be above 20. My reading ease level is at about 70%, and that's fantastic. The closer you can get to 100, the more readable it is. You definitely don't want to be lower than that, but this is a number to check if you're thinking about your audience. And then the other number to check as you're thinking about your audience is your Kincaid grade level check. So this is not that I'm writing like a 6th grader, it's that a 6th grader should be able to read this page. And yeah, a 6th grader should be able to read this page. But notice that as I'm writing for different audiences, I want to make sure that these numbers are appropriate. So, for example, if I were writing a very technical paper for an academic audience, it better not say that a 6th grader would be absolutely fine with it, right? And you can check that and change that. But a lay audience is going to be able to do this just fine. And I'm going to say okay. And that is going to take us to the end of this. Happy formatting.